Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this high-level session co-organized by the Korean Disease Control and Prevention Agency and Unitaid on collective action for global health security, preparing for access to therapeutics, the case for monoclonal antibodies. My name is Janet Gennard. I'm the Director of Strategy at Unitaid. I'll be the moderator for today's event. We are honored to have all of you here today and our esteemed speakers representing an array of perspectives and expertise dedicated to advancing equitable access to life-saving tools globally. This event is also being live streamed, so I'd like to welcome our online viewers today, as well as a warm welcome to everyone in the room. Our discussions today will focus on the critical role of therapeutics, and specifically monoclonal antibodies, and how these can play an important role in pandemic preparedness and response, and also against endemic diseases, especially in low and middle-income countries. We will also discuss the collaborative efforts needed to make these innovations accessible for all. We will begin with opening remarks, followed by insightful keynote speeches, and conclude with a dynamic panel session. We do have simultaneous translation, so if you are listening, we have Korean in channel 5 on the devices at your seat, and English in channel 6. Let me now officially open the event with remarks from our esteemed speakers. To begin, it is my pleasure to invite Dr. Philippe Dunaton, Executive Director of Unitaid, to deliver opening remarks. Dr. Dunaton, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Janet, and good morning, everybody. And I want to start to say that I feel in a family here. It's really a pleasure for me, and I want to really express my gratitude to the Minister of Health of Korea, our colleagues and friends from KDCA who co-organized, of course, this session this morning, but also the Republic of Korea for its constant support and increased support since 16 years. The oldest support we have in the room is Norway. This is a founding member with ETAM. ETAM represents NORAD from Norway, but also the board. So I'm also very pleased to speak and him to participate to this panel. I will concentrate my opening remarks on three things: who we are, why biologic products are quite important for therapeutics, and why we count on you here in this room. Who we are. My grandmother told me when I was a kid that it's better to present yourself. And Unitaid is focused on access to innovation. And we have bring to the market in countries in the south more than 100 products, 30 more to come before the 2030. And we are reaching and supporting 300 million people a year in the world, every year, increasing. And because we are focused on access and price negotiation, because we need to make this product affordable, the overall savings that we are considering each year is $1 billion of US dollars. And we have bring models and we can demonstrate that the acceleration of the global response against HIV, TB, malaria is accelerating by 3 to 4 years. So this is an idea of impact, and we are working first in HIV, TB, malaria, but also more and more in women's health, screening and treating cervical cancer, in complement to the vaccination that Gavi is providing, but also postpartum hemorrhagic postpartum and eclampsia, post-eclampsia, but also the work that we do in PPR, in pandemic response. Why biologic products are important? Since the beginning, we have been working different tools in, of course, medicine and treatment. Most of what we have been doing is developing generic market for small molecule, chemical molecules, and with great satisfaction. But what we see is the indication of biologic product, in particular for the MABs, the monoclonal antibody, that is increasing every month. You have a new indication, and currently is a major drug or product as an immunotherapy, but also anti-cancer drug, and more in infectious disease. We know, and we know with people in this room, and I have to note our friends and colleague from the Wright Foundation, Dr. Kim, that there are indications for biological products in the South. For example, malaria, potentially for kids. And this can be very powerful if we make it affordable. So we see that this indication can be developed. So it's a question of R&D, but it's a question of thinking of end-to-end. So make the product available, affordable, but also usable, and of course, at scale. We know that we have challenges, we know, and among the challenges we see, we have to, and it was a lesson learned from the COVID-19, including in this country, how to balance and articulate the public health response with the medical countermeasures. You need both. You need a strong public health response, but you need also the right tools in the right time, in the right hands, at the right time. And this is not behind us, it's in front of us. We have, I said it yesterday, but 8 family of virus that has the potential to become a pandemic situation. And already in Africa, we have, of course, the Mpox and Marburg. And for therapeutics, the situation is we have no response. We have nothing that works. So the conclusion is we need to build partnership, coalition to address this situation. If not, we will not be in situation to respond at the right level. And it's my third point. My last point is why we are here. Why we are here? Because we count on you. You in the room, you in the country, you as partners. When I talk about Unitaid and its impact is not about Unitaid. The strategy we have, and the director of strategy, Janet, is there, has been consulted with more than 300 organizations, government, academia, industry. So it's not just the strategy of Unitaid, it's the strategy of the response in terms of access to innovation. And to fulfill our strategy to achieve what we want to do is with partners. Partners that are in this room, and of course, university, academia, industry, public-private partnerships such as the Wright Fund will be the one, in particular for biologic, that will help us to make this happening. But in top of that, it's not just to have the product. There is a special dimension that didn't exist before the COVID-19. And that dimension is the fact that we cannot have a place in the world that they have to be only dependent of what the North can supply. We need also to have a dimension of regional production. So as much as we need to invest in R&D in also a lot of complex steps that will be described by Carmen. We need to think now about how we can enhance and have regional production, but also connected with real markets, because if not, it doesn't make any sense. So that's a reason why we really look at Republic of Korea, look at the work of the hub for the training for biological product. And I really want to thank all the panelists this morning and all the people on the web. And a special thank for the Commissioner Yi. I really regret not to see her today. It's always a pleasure to talk and think with her, but I know she has a very good reason not to be with us this morning, and we will see her in video. But I want really to thank all the panelists, Yumi Kim, Carmen, of course, Dr. Kim, Janet, Dr. Bae, Dr. Seo, Dr. Yan, and of course, Aitem. As I said, very important support from Norway that pushes always us to do better, and this is the case also this morning. So thanks all of you, and thanks for your time this morning.
Thank you, Dr. Dunaton, for those inspiring words on the importance of global health security and equitable access to therapeutics and the importance of partnerships. Next, we will hear a congratulatory message from Commissioner Young-mi Ji, Commissioner of the Korea Disease Control and Prevention Agency, who will join us via video.
Good morning, distinguished guests, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Young-mi Ji, Commissioner of the Korea Disease Control and Prevention Agency. I'd like to welcome you all to the Unitaid-KDCA side event, and I'm so delighted to co-host this side event with Unitaid during the third World Bio Summit. I'd like to extend my sincere gratitude to Dr. Philip Dunaton, Executive Director of Unitaid, for his unwavering commitment and co-organizing this event to discuss collaborative action for global security and the roles of global networks in pandemic preparedness. I also want to express my deepest appreciation to our distinguished speakers, moderator, and panelists for their invaluable contribution to today's discussion. Unitaid has been KDCA's steadfast partner not only in our shared vision to combat tuberculosis, malaria, and HIV, but also in addressing major gaps in global health, such as inequities in access to medical products. I had the privilege of participating in a Unitaid side event during this year's UN General Assembly to address AMR, focusing on children and women's health, which was another example of our shared goals. I hope during our side event today, we can have in-depth discussions on how we can prepare and respond to next pandemic based on our lessons learned from COVID-19, how we can ensure equitable access to medical products, and what are the barriers and solutions, and how we can build and foster effective public-private partnerships. And recently, KDCA announced 2 strategic plans, the National Pandemic Preparedness and Response Plan last year, and the Pandemic Influenza Preparedness and Response Plan this year. In alignment with these strategies, KDCA is advancing infectious disease surveillance system and strengthening public health infrastructure and investing in the development of mRNA vaccines and therapeutics for infectious diseases. The COVID-19 experience underscored the critical need for timely development, manufacturing, and distribution of vaccines and therapeutics, as well as importance of technological innovation, public-private partnerships, and international collaboration to curb the spread of infectious diseases. Among many advancements, monoclonal antibodies stand out as a powerful countermeasure for public health emergencies, offering rapid and effective responses. However, significant challenges such as emergence of variants, sustainability, and accessibility gaps remain. Global partnerships will be crucial to overcome these challenges, enabling rapid and sustainable production. Korea has successfully developed COVID-19 monoclonal antibody, the world's third COVID-19 therapeutic antibody based on our world-class monoclonal antibody production infrastructure. As Korea-KDCA prepares for future pandemics, we are investing in innovative platforms across diverse medical modalities. I can assure you, Korean government is fully committed to working with all national and international partners, including Unitaid, to improve access to medical products and accelerate developing therapeutics. Building a resilient collaborative network will be critical, and we invite each of you to contribute to these ongoing efforts. I do hope today's meeting serves as a catalyst for strengthened private and public sector cooperation at the global level, ultimately advancing health equity and achieving our shared vision of health for all and leaving no one behind. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Ji, for that thoughtful congratulatory message and for highlighting Korea's continued commitment to strengthening health security. We will now proceed with our keynote presentations, each of which will offer unique perspectives on the lessons learned and highlighting the roles of monoclonal antibodies in health security. Our first keynote will be delivered by Director Yumi Kim, Director of the Division of Emergency Preparedness and Response at Korea-KDCA, who will discuss lessons learned from COVID-19 and Mpox. Please join me in welcoming Director Kim via video.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Yumi from Division Director of Emergency Preparedness and Response at the KDCA. Thank you of Dr. Philip Dennington and organizers in Unitaid. I'm pleased to have an opportunity to introduce our National Pandemic Preparedness and Response Plan, established to build on the lessons from COVID-19. This slide shows trends in COVID-19 cases and Korea's response during the pandemic. At a glance, it's clear that vaccines and therapeutics have played a huge role in the COVID-19 response. Initially, we aimed to control the spread and keep cases manageable through the 3T strategies, meaning testing, tracing, and treatment, while implementing NPI, non-pharmaceutical intervention. After Omicron variant emerged, we focused on protecting high-risk populations to minimize severity and deaths. It was able to lift mandatory wearing masks and social distancing. These changes were made possible by high vaccination rate and over 80% and the availability of treatments. From our experience with COVID-19, we have identified several key lessons for future pandemic preparedness. You can find the lessons from the slide, but today I'd like to emphasize the importance of vaccine and therapeutic development. Please look at the last part, Area 6, supporting research and development will establish a strong foundation for future infectious disease responses. We had a similar experience with Mpox. As you can see from the slide, after the first case of Mpox, we quickly introduced a treatment within a month and vaccinated high-risk groups with Jynneos, a third-generation vaccine. So, although there was a peak in April 2023, about 40 to 50 cases a month, we were able to handle the spread of Mpox stably. Compared to other countries, South Korea has not had any mpox deaths, which can be attributed to the rapid availability of these vaccines and treatment. Now let's move on the pandemic preparedness and response plan part. We have announced the plan in May 2023 under the vision of a safe society through an agile, collaborative, and resilient health system. We have three main goals to realize the vision. Firstly, secure essential medical countermeasures, including vaccine and therapeutics within 100 or 200 days. Secondly, strengthen and maintain high-level response capacity for sustainable pandemic management. Lastly, prioritize the health and safety of vulnerable populations to minimize health inequities. There are 10 core tasks, and the 10th task is about the development of vaccine and therapeutics. The slide outlines KDCA's vaccine and therapeutic development strategy, segmented into 3 phases: preparedness, response, and evaluation and complementation. During the development phase, we'll focus on selecting priority pathogens which have a high pandemic potential and developing a library of vaccine and therapeutic prototypes for each pathogen. Furthermore, we plan to increase our budget allocation to secure vital technology such as the mRNA platform, enabling us to expedite vaccine production in crisis situations. In the response phase, our primary focus will be the swift development and clinical evaluation of vaccines and therapeutics. If prototypes have already progressed to phase 1 clinical trials, our goal is to complete the development procedure within 100 days. For all other scenarios, we aimed to complete the development within 200 days. We know this goal is very highly ambitious, but there is a pressing need to develop or secure vaccines and therapeutics faster than the roughly 300 days timeframe we experienced during the COVID-19 pandemic. The KDCA has also announced the pandemic influenza preparedness and response plan last September. The PIP also focused on accelerating the development and production of vaccines and improve their effectiveness. The predictive vaccines and prototypes will be developed to ensure availability within 100 or 200 days following an outbreak. Along with these efforts, we are also designated by WHO Collaborating Center for Pandemic Preparedness and Response. I'm honored to have an opportunity today to present our pandemic preparedness and response plan. We look forward to contributing further to a safe global public health environment through ongoing collaboration with Unitaid, and KDCA will continue to share our experience with you. Thank you for your attention.
Thanks to Director Kim. Next, we have Ms. Carmen Perez-Casas, Senior Strategy Lead and Head of PPPR at Unitaid. Ms. Perez-Casas will speak on ensuring equitable access to monoclonal antibodies in resource-limited settings. Ms. Perez-Casas, the floor is yours.
Hello, everybody. Good morning and good afternoon, or for those online, if you are in another time zone. I'm really pleased to be here. As our executive director said, for us this is a very important event, and we are very happy to be here another year and seeing the progress on the very important challenges as described by the Commissioner and Director Lee. In fact, millions of people, as we know, still do not have access to the life-saving tools that they need. And Unitaid was created to address this inequality. And in COVID-19, we put our models and our programs to work to ensure access to the medical countermeasures that were needed, therapeutics, diagnostics, oxygen, and we played a leading role in the ACT-A accelerator, the groundbreaking collaboration to ensure that things are done efficiently during pandemics. So since then, we work in global health emergencies. First of all, the COVID-19 pandemic, as I said, was really putting on the spotlight inequities on access for low and middle income countries. So we have analyzed with this access lens what went wrong in each of the steps of the value chain and examine access consideration in each steps from research and development, the regulatory, the manufacturing and supply, or the deployment and adoption of these tools. And we realize that many of those barriers remain still today and must be addressed in advance on future pandemics. So we are leveraging the lessons learned and now investing with the support from Korea to increase resilience in cross-cutting areas that strengthen health systems, markets, and countries' resilience to weather new pandemics. So, let me review with you the situation, first of all, for medical countermeasures in COVID-19, thinking on the 100 days mission goals that was just alluded to by KDCA. Regarding diagnostics in green, it took only 64 days for the first commercial real-time PCR to be listed by WHO, although it took much longer, 236 days on the next green star for the first rapid test, which is so important in managing outbreaks in resource-limited settings. With vaccines in yellow, compared to other diseases before, it was a record time, but it still took 300 days to see the first one recommended by WHO. And coming to therapeutics in red, the problem was the lack of sufficient candidates because of underinvestment on the research pipeline for decades. So we could not treat those infected, and only a corticoid in 200 days was approved for the most severe cases, and we still have to wait one more year at the last star to see antivirals being approved for cases that were mild. And even though we didn't have access in low and middle income countries, we still had to add another year into this graph. But in this Bio Summit, I wanted to make emphasis on monoclonal antibodies, my first red star. They can be very quick to be developed, as you very well know, even before vaccines. In COVID, it took only 94 days to have the first COVID monoclonal antibodies developed. However, as you know, because of the variants that have been described before, it was not eventually possible to use them without genotyping, etc., and there was no possibility for access in low and middle income countries. Let's look, sorry, I'm doing too quick. Up, how can I go backwards? That will be, oh, shoot, excuse me. Voila, no, excuse me, I was too quick. Let's look now at 3 examples I want to bring you today with different market size, each of them. First of all, in general, monoclonal antibodies, as you know, are actually revolutionizing modern medicine. And you know very well they have decreased mortality from many cancers and morbidity for non-communicable diseases in high-income countries, and is one of the most the pipelines that are most dynamic by biopharmaceutical industry, including Korea. They are also one of the quickest measures that can be leveraged during emergencies, as we just saw, And they are very promising as well for many other diseases, which I would like to cover some of them today, and this is affecting mainly low and middle income countries. So the first example I wanted to share is still in pandemics. I would like to look like Director Kim just did to Mpox, this outbreak that is now being severely affecting very vulnerable people, specifically in Africa. Monoclonals are part of the products in the pipeline for this terrible disease affecting children and adults, and especially deadly in immunocompromised populations for which other medical countermeasures don't work, like advanced HIV disease patients. Monoclonal antibodies, however, the pipeline is very slow. And although we are today in day 90 after the declaration of the pandemic by the WHO director, we still don't have monoclonal antibodies in the clinical phase, but only on the preclinical phase. So unless we do things faster, they will come late for this outbreak. And they are a priority. So enabling research and development for these products is a priority. And we in Unitaid, as we had done before in COVID, we are working together with all the partners in the different coordinating mechanisms at the global, as in this picture, regional and national levels to ensure that we can get a better optimized clinical care and diagnosis to everybody in need. Coming to my second example, this is as well a disease that is affecting respiratory syncytial virus that is affecting many people in the world, especially children. Today is World Pneumonia Day, and you will hear and see a lot of reports about this virus, which causes a massive burden of hospitalization and death every year, and kills over 100,000 deaths, small kids, because of pneumonia and bronchiolitis. Most of them, 97%, die in low and middle income countries. There are new generation monoclonal antibodies that have approved in 2022, nirsevimab, that have already reduced associated mortality and hospitalization drastically in the countries where they had access last year. And it's actually recommended now, since very recently, since weeks, by WHO for all kids, together with the maternal vaccine. Why? Because these antibodies do not have only efficacy. Now they are available on one single shot, one injection, which makes really a big difference in resource-limited settings compared to older treatments. However, they meet all the targets we want on a monoclonal antibody except for price. There is no less than $500 per injection now, and there is very limited supply with one single source. So making this critical therapy available at affordable cost is a priority for low and middle income countries. My third example is malaria. As you know, it's a very common parasitical disease with mostly also or only confined to low and middle income countries nowadays. And it kills more than 600,000 kids every year. Malaria antibodies are being developed that could be very useful to complement the vaccines and the rest of treatments for malaria, where a disease cannot be controlled with vaccines. Summarizing, there is a global need for monoclonal antibodies, but they are not globally accessible, with today only 1% of the total market being represented by Africa. They are very complex to use. They are among the world's most expensive treatments. There is limited capacity for supply, and there are many complex regulatory pathways, as we will hear later in the panel, especially in pandemics. We had discussed these challenges with a long time in consultations, including with Korean representatives, and trying to understand how can we enable actually a different market for antibodies that can benefit as well low and middle income countries. These powerful tools that need to reach those in need we have to think on new strategies, including partnerships like with you today, and enable conditions for equitable access. So we are preparing several programs for champions antibodies to define the scenarios, the business model, and the opportunities for improving the antibodies cost of production and delivery. And we will continue to work on all these steps, including regulatory and IP, hoping with you. So just to close with a growing pipeline of antibodies, there is an imperative to overcome the access barriers, and by working with public health organizations, pharmaceutical companies, civil society, and all the institutions like KDCA, we hope that we can make these biotherapeutics available for people in need. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Perez-Casas, for highlighting the clinical promise and the potential for market growth if access can really be addressed in partnership. Thank you for that. Finally, we will hear from Dr. Henny Kim now, Executive Director of the Wright Foundation, who will explore the importance of public-private partnerships for equitable access to health innovations, including monoclonal antibodies. Dr. Kim, the floor is yours.
Okay, first of all, I would like to thank Korean Disease Control Agency as well as my colleagues at Unitaid for inviting Wright Foundation for this discussion. So I would like to zoom out a little bit and switch gears to think a little bit about public-private partnership and why it matters. So I would like to emphasize the public-private partnership that I would like to describe has emphasis on public, so the first P. But why do we care about public-private partnership with emphasis on public? It is because for decades we recognize that when market mechanisms are left alone to take care of innovation around health technologies, they tend to concentrate the effects of innovation in the wealthiest section of the society. This is nothing new. In fact, I'm citing an old report published in 1990 that recognized this famous term 10/90 gap. So back in 1990, it was recognized that 90% of the global resources spent on supporting R&D focused on health conditions that affected the 10% of the wealthiest population. In other words, the public nature has to be deeply ingrained in the governance of the public health R&D. So as an example, Carmen already did a wonderful job of giving detailed background on the situation with the monoclonal antibodies and inequity. I would like to just highlight just two slides on the similar topic. So shown on this slide is the landscape of the global supplies of life-saving monoclonal antibodies that are supplied across the world. And this was published by Wellcome Trust and IAVI a couple of years ago. And the percentages are approximations only, but suffice to say that the vast majority of the global supplies of monoclonal antibodies are concentrated in, again, the wealthiest parts of the world, in US, Canada, Europe, while only 20% of the antibodies reach the rest of the world. Why is that? Now, you could easily guess it has to do with price. So shown on the left side of the slide describes the price in US dollars, the median price of monoclonal antibodies by therapy area for 1 full year of treatment. If we start from the top, the very expensive category, to treat cancers or blood-related disorders, over $142,000 US per year. It simply is prohibitively expensive for equitable access. So how does that translate into availability or lack of availability within the public health system on the right-hand side? So you are seeing several different countries, and starting from the left, we're looking at some of the wealthiest nations like UK, Sweden. Of the 7 life-saving monoclonal antibodies, all 7 are available for public reimbursement in UK. In Sweden, 6 out of 7 are available. Now you move along the x-axis to the far right-hand side. In the case of India and Egypt, All 7 antibodies are available, but only in the private market, none available for public reimbursement. In other words, these life-saving interventions are only accessible to those who could pay. So how do we change this? And we've already heard this echoed through Dr. Jonathan as well as Carmen. It takes all of us to collaborate with this shared purpose. So 4 points I would like to draw your attention to. All of us need to collaborate, but that collaboration needs to be anchored in this common goal of pursuing public health and health equity. It has to be a value-based innovation, value-based collaboration. There's a huge role for the government to play, the government's leadership to incentivize innovation where commercial risks are simply too high for our industry partners to be engaged. But that doesn't spare the R&D industry partners without any responsibilities. They too have a very important responsibility. They must be committed to access that is truly global and equitable. In bracket, I've just listed some aspects of what that commitment should entail minimally. So when you design product characteristics, would they be supportive of truly global access? Thermal stability, ease of operation. Are they committed to supplying? Are they committed to voluntary licensing? Are they committed to integrating them truly within the local public health system, not just penetrating the private market? And all the innovators can think of innovation in a slightly different way. We're very used to thinking of innovation in terms of first-in-class, which is valuable. But in addition to the first-in-class type of innovation, I know from my first-hand experience that Korea is extremely strong in, I would say, best-in-class. So you can take something that already exists. Can you make it even better performing, more thermostable, more affordable, more portable, easier to manufacture? So all of these considerations will be absolutely crucial as we collaborate to develop and make available essential health technologies as truly public goods. So to that end, Wright Foundation was established in 2018 with the funding from the Ministry of Health and Welfare. Our second largest funder is the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and 11 Korean companies have also contributed to our operation in the past. Now, on a single slide, I would like to describe our mission and our funding programs. So our mission is deeply tied to health equity. We strive to alleviate the disproportionate burden of infectious diseases that are placed upon low and middle-income countries. This is directly tied to the fact that the source of the Korean government's money is official development assistance money. We have 3 funding streams. Product Development Award, we fund efforts to make them available, make essential health technologies such as vaccines, therapeutics, and diagnostics as public goods. We also support efforts to generate key evidence to guide product development. And thirdly, we fund to support personnel from low and middle income countries to come to Korea to receive hands-on training in vaccine manufacturing in close collaboration with the Global Training Hub for Biomanufacturing, which is a larger initiative led by the Korean government. I would like to thank you for your attention and thank my team that does all the work and the funders for the Wright Foundation. Thank you. 감사합니다.
Thank you, Dr. Kim, for your presentation highlighting the importance and role of public-private partnerships, equity and access, and Korea's role in best-in-class products and supporting and facilitating access. I'd like to thank all of our keynote speakers for those informative and thought-provoking presentations. Your insights have set a powerful foundation for today's discussion on achieving equitable access to monoclonal antibodies worldwide. We'll now be moving into our panel section. I'm honored to moderate today's panel, and I will be joined in just a moment by an esteemed panel of experts from academia, global health institutions, and governments on an essential topic: opportunities to increase access to innovative monoclonal antibodies for pandemic and endemic diseases. The challenge of ensuring access to these critical therapeutics, especially in low and middle income countries, is one of the most pressing issues we face in global health today. So I will be introducing our distinguished panelists. I will ask them to join me on stage as I call. So first we have Professor Sungjin Bae, professor at the College of Pharmacy, Yuha Women's University in Seoul. We have Professor Kyungwon Seo, professor at the Department of Regulatory Science and Policy, Dongkook University. We have Secretary General Hyunju Yang, Secretary General of the Global Training Hub for Biomanufacturing Support Foundation. And we have Mr. Haitham El-Noush, Acting Head of Global Health at the Norwegian Agency for Development Cooperation. I'd like to welcome again all of you. I'll ask each of you to respond to a question to set the stage, followed by a second round where we will have an opportunity to dive a little deeper into the challenges and potential solutions. Thank you. Wonderful, thank you. So I'll start with an opening question for each of our panelists today. Professor Bae, I'll start with you. We've just heard 3 insightful keynote presentations that highlighted both the challenges and the opportunities in ensuring collective access to biologics like monoclonal antibodies. Given your expertise in pharmacy and healthcare, would you like to share any additional thoughts or reflections to set the scene?
Sure, and good morning. I prepared in English. I'm going to go ahead in English. I'd like to acknowledge KCDA and Unitaid for hosting World Bio Summit on access to MAPS and having 3 great presentations from leaders in the field of fair access to health innovations, namely KCDA, Unitaid, and the Wright Foundation. It's a great pleasure to be here along with 3 distinguished panelists. Regarding the moderator's comments, it is clear that the global collaboration is a key theme emphasized by all 3 speakers. For example, the World Health Organization selected South Korea as a new global biomanufacturing training hub to provide technical and hands-on experience to professionals from low and middle income countries. This program continues to support biomanufacturing personnel from low and middle income countries in becoming self-sufficient vaccine experts, enhancing their capacity to produce biological products, including vaccine, MAPS, and more, which is a great example of global collaboration. And also, Wright Foundation has shown impressive public-private partnership, and it could be an inspirational and crucial model for the sustainable access to MAPS in low middle-income countries. The Wright Foundation is identifying research and development projects and providing funding to enable Korean pharma companies to leverage their advanced technologies in the development of vaccines and therapeutics. The funding model is based on ODA, Official Development Assistance, and the support is directed toward R&D for infectious disease with limited commercial appeal, such as RSV, malaria, rather than high-priced drugs that pharma companies typically fund independently. This support encompasses not only R&D, but also procurement pathways for low middle-income countries, including acquiring WHO PQ certification. Therefore, by leveraging this kind of public-private partnerships, the development of MAPS can be realized, paving the way for entry into international procurement markets and better access. And finally, Unitaid has played a key role for ensuring equitable access to to life-saving drug products for low middle-income countries by engaging in end-to-end value chain. And I'm excited to share with you that Unitaid has just embarked on a new research project on case studies comparing Brazil, Colombia, and Korea, and Senegal. And we are also part of the project along with international colleagues. Our research team is composed of global partners from 4 different socioeconomic and political contexts, and we will develop case studies that lay out viable and sustainable models to support accessibility of maps in respective geopolitical context. So please stay tuned for our study, which will be finished around 2026. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Bay. It's clear that monoclonals hold significant promise and that the challenges around access and affordability cannot be ignored. We're also excited about the collaboration. So we'll come back to explore some of those challenges in a bit more depth. But first, I'd like to turn to Professor Sao. Professor Sao, from a regulatory perspective, what are some of the key considerations when seeking marketing authorization of monoclonal antibodies for low middle income countries? What are some of the opportunities that could support broader registration and availability?
네, 안녕하세요. 저는 한국말로 답변을 하겠습니다. 네, 다 준비가 되셨으면 이제 답을 하겠습니다. 네, 저는 지금 학교에 있지만 작년 5월 말까지는 한국 식약처에서 근무를 했고요. 한국 식약처에서 약 한 35년간 의약품 허가 심사를 담당하고 있었습니다. 특히 코로나19 때 치료제를 심사하고 또 협력해서 개발을 같이 함께 했었던 역할을 담당해서 그 경험을 여러분과 함께 공유하고 규제기관이 이러한 팬데믹에서 굉장히 중요한 역할을 할 수 있다는 것을 좀 느껴서 그 부분을 전달해드리고 싶습니다. 단클론항체의 접근성을 향상하기 위해서 규제기관에서 꼭 해야 하는, 우리가 함께 해야 하는 거를 3가지로 말씀을 드릴 수 있을 것 같아요. 첫 번째는 심사자가 부족해요. 그게 우리 식약처, 한국의 식약처만 부족한 게 아니라 모든 규제기관이 부족하고, 특히 저희가 오늘 이야기를 하고 있는 LMIC 국가에서는 더 많이 부족하다고 생각을 합니다. WHO PQ 프로그램은 공동심사 플랫폼을 가지고 있어요. 그래서 제 생각에는 이 부족한 심사자를 이러한 문제점을 좀 극복하기 위해서는 이 단클론 항체에 대한 공동심사 플랫폼을 운영을 하는 것이 좋지 않을까, 이런 생각을 하고 있습니다. 2번째로는 사실 그 일반 케미칼이나 백신의 심사 기준, 가이드라인 같은 거는 상당히 많이 만들어져 있는데 단클론 항체에 특화되어져 있는 가이드라인은 현재 많이 만들어져 있지는 않습니다. ICH에서 가이드라인을 만들지만 주로 이노베이터들, 신약에 대한 것이 집중이 되어 있고요. 바이오시밀러에 대한 거는 크게 많이 다루고 있지 않은 부분이 있어요. 그래서 WHO와 같이 이러한 협의체에서, 이러한 기구에서 이제 바이오시밀러와 같은 이러한 대상들에 대해서 가이드라인을 만들어내는 것이 좋을 거라고 저는 생각을 하고요. 그리고 3번째로 심사자들이 이제 교육을 받아야 되거든요. 지속적으로. 또 새로운 이제 과학의 이런 발전이 있기 때문에요. WHO에서도 그렇고 저희 우리나라에서 그렇고 이 심사자들, 규제 당국자들을 대상으로 해서 단클론 항체에 특화된 교육 프로그램을 개발을 하고 함께 좀 혜택을 누리도록 하는 것이 좋을 거라고 생각합니다. 이제 마지막으로 제가 규제기관에 있었기 때문에 말씀드릴 수 있는 거는 대한민국 식약처는 우리나라 국민의 안전과 또 국민 건강 증진에 노력하는 건데요. 규제기관의 당국자들이 조금 더 생각을 넓혀서 우리나라 국민뿐만 아니라 더 인류를 생각하고 더 넓게 좀 생각을 확장해야 될 필요가 있다고 생각하고요. 또 마지막으로 규제기관에서는 항상 규제만 한다고 생각하시면 안 됩니다. 개발하는 사람들과 함께, 회사와 함께, 산업계와 함께 네트워크를 잘 구성을 해서 개발하는 것도 도와줘야 된다고 생각합니다. 이상입니다.
Thank you very much, Professor Sowell. Next, let's hear, thank you for highlighting the lack of resources for review and the potential for collaborative review, guidelines, and training. It's a perfect segue. We'll next hear from Secretary General Yang. Dr. Yang, we've heard in earlier presentations, also from Professor Sowell, about the limited experience with monoclonal antibodies in some regions, which presents challenges not only for the pharmaceutical industry, but also for regulatory bodies. What is your perspective on these challenges, especially during pandemics, and how could we address these issues?
Thank you for introducing me and for inviting this very important discussion. I'm a Secretary General of the GTHB Support Foundation. GTHB means the Global Training Hub for Biomanufacturing. This is the WHO Workforce Training Initiative. So it was founded this year. So I'm not quite sure about the details situation of low and middle income countries, but I'd like to share about my opinions from the general perspective. The monoclonal antibody represents one of the more complex classes of biologics, and our experience with them in many regions, particularly in low and middle income countries, remains limited. The limitations brings challenges on both sides. The industry faces difficulties in developing and scale up these treatments in a way that is feasible and affordable for a broader global use, while regulatory bodies are tasked with evaluating and approving products that require highly specialized knowledge and rigorous safety and efficacy testing. The advanced technology and equipment required for manufacturing processes are costly, making it challenging for LMIC to establish their own manufacturing infrastructure. In particular, most monoclonal antibodies are produced in mammalian cells, which require complex culture systems and specialized equipment. The technology transfer needed for the production of monoclonal antibodies is also limited, and the manufacturing techniques and the process details of the original manufacturers are often kept confidential. Therefore, for LMICs to develop manufacturing capabilities, they must receive these technologies, a process that is complex and requires support. Another challenge is the complex manufacturing process for monoclonal antibodies. Unlike small molecules drugs, MAP requires advanced biotechnological facilities, highly skilled personnel, and adherence to stringent quality control measures. Many countries may lack this infrastructure or the expertise needed to assess such complex products fully, which can delay approval and access. Additionally, during pandemics, the urgency to deploy new treatments like monoclonal antibody conflicts with the time required for thorough regulatory review. Streamlining the regulatory process while maintaining high safety standards is a complex balancing act. This is where international collaboration becomes crucial. Through shared data, regulatory reliance frameworks, and the joint review process, regulators can support one another in evaluating these products more efficiently. Initiatives like the WHO's pre-qualification program can also be instrumental in setting quality benchmarks that help us streamline monoclonal antibody deployment worldwide. Ultimately, building regulatory capacity and expertise in biologics, especially monoclonal antibody in under-resourced regions, will be critical. By fostering partnership between more experienced regulatory bodies and those still developing their biologics expertise, we can make significant steps toward equitable global access to these life-saving therapeutics. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Yang. Yeah, the need for training and capacity building in regions with less experience in biologics production is very clear, and your work with the Global Training Hub for Biomanufacturing provides a critical avenue for addressing this. Finally, let me turn to Mr. Haitam Alnoush. Norway played a leadership role in the Access to COVID Tools Accelerator during the COVID-19 pandemic, working to ensure equitable access to new tools, including therapeutics. Mr. Alnoush, what were some of the key challenges we faced in promoting equitable access during the pandemic? And what lessons can we learn from this experience that might help inform future cooperation around access to monoclonals?
Good morning, everyone, and thanks, Janet, for the question. Let me first thank the organizers, Unitaid, the Korean Disease Agency, for inviting me to this. And I would like also to thank the World Health Organization, the Korean Minister of Health, and the Korean government for arranging this great event. And everything is perfect. The weather is perfect. The food was delicious yesterday, and the performances were great. I sent clips to my son, who is trying to be an artist. And he said, wow, what kind of event are you attending, actually? And again, I have to also to thank the Korean government for their contribution to global health. To your question, so you asked about the challenge, Janet, but I think I should start with the positive things, on a positive note. What worked, right? And with political will, sufficient, everything is relative, but sufficient financing and partnerships, we managed to overcome. First, we managed to accelerate the R&D processes during the pandemic, and we managed to overcome regulatory bottlenecks and technical gaps. So this worked well. But at the same time, some of the structural problems remain, like, because of the cost and the risks were high or huge, or usually for R&D activities. So these activities tend to be directed towards the priorities and the technical capacities of systems in low and in high income countries Hani was talking about earlier today. So this remains. So my hope, and it sounds familiar, right? This is a market failure we talk about, which leaves huge gaps in terms of diseases that impact poor countries or low and middle income countries. So my hope, my dream is the experiences from COVID can inspire us to think of the underlying challenges for access across diseases, not in silos, but across diseases, so we can achieve equitable access. And by that, I mean three things. First, we should put market shaping on the top of the agenda. So we shape the R&D and innovation markets so as to achieve equitable access. The second thing, and shaping market is very, very relevant for two things coming out of the pandemic. For emerging technologies like the MAPS and mRNA, and it is very relevant to regional production, right? So this one, market shaping. The other thing is we should coordinate the financing of preparedness better. This is a big topic, but I just put it on the agenda. And the third thing is preparedness imply that we should respond to today's problem in a way that improve preparedness. So we should not think of what's coming, but we have problems today that we can approach, that we can try to solve with preparedness in mind. And in this context, I would like to call out and recognize the effort by Unitaid for medical oxygen, which is at the heart of preparedness, and of course, the Korean government's opening its doors for bio industry, bio manufacturing training. This is also part of the preparedness, but still it will also respond to current challenges. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Haitham, and for highlighting market shaping, finance preparedness, and resilience, building resilience through today's response. Really appreciate that. And thank you to all panelists for the first round of responses. In our second round of questions, we'll take a deeper look at some of the specific issues and solutions that are starting to emerge here from the insights shared. Professor Bay, we heard in the keynote presentations that monoclonal antibodies, while promising, are currently expensive and challenging to implement in low-resource settings. In your view, what are some of the key factors that may be addressed to boost support from pharmaceutical companies to make biologics more affordable and accessible in these settings?
Thank you for the great but really hard question. So as Janet has correctly mentioned, the access to existing maps is limited in low and middle income countries, and industry's investment in developing maps in infectious disease has been lacking. However, lessons from COVID-19 further highlights the importance of pharma innovation and manufacturing in developing countries to ensure health equity and resilience. And its engagement of pharma companies is critical for the sustainable long-term access to the map in low middle-income countries. The case of vaccine transfer, technology transfer by a Korean biopharma company called U-Biologics to South Africa could serve as a valuable win-win model. It is a technology transfer agreement which could lead to a stable revenue growth and increase profitability for donor company while establishing the recipient country to strengthening the current manufacturing capabilities. Particularly, U-Biologics has signed a technology transfer agreement with BioVac, a biopharma manufacturer based on South Africa, for a meningitis vaccine. Based on this technology transfer agreement, U-Biologics will supply the drug substance for the vaccine, which is expected to become a major export team item and cash cow for the company, while BioVac will handle the final manufacturing and filling process, enabling a stable supply of the vaccine locally. And also, U-Biologics has signed an agreement with DK, a vaccine manufacturer based in Ghana, for technology transfer of finished product, manufacturing and supply of a drug substance for its oral cholera vaccine. Through this agreement, UV-Col, the oral cholera vaccine, is expected to be manufactured locally in Africa, contributing to capacity building for African manufacturers. Additionally, this agreement includes a provision granting exclusive sales rights for UV-Col in both public and private markets across 17 African countries. As the agreement grants exclusive sales rights covering both private and public markets, it is anticipated to support U-Biologics in expanding its presence in the African market. And this case is not just limited in Korea. Cases of multinational pharma companies transferring technology due to the promising outlook of the Brazilian market could also serve as a model for increasing vaccine manufacturing in low middle-income countries. In Brazil, the domestic production is exclusively public, and largely dependent on technology transfer strategies from multinational pharma companies. For example, GSK has conducted long-term technology transfer of vaccines for influenza, oral polio, and rotavirus, and to Biomeningos, a public institution in Brazil. This relationship as a public-private partnership, PPP model, has been sustained over a long period and is regarded as a win-win collaboration. In exchange for GSK providing technical assistance, Biomeningos would pay a running royalty of 4 to 5% of a period of 5 years, and Biomeningos is required to maintain confidentiality and protect know-how for a period of 10 years. What GSK gains is a strategic advantage in accessing other emerging markets, therefore giving it a competitive edge over other companies that are only starting their partnerships. Through this kind of partnership, the donor company could capture a dominant market position in high demand, large purchasing countries like Brazil. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those reflections and great examples of collaboration. Now, Professor Sao, given your regulatory expertise, what do you think are the most important steps we can take to enhance the regulatory pathways for therapeutics and mAbs in resource-limited settings? How can these countries balance the need for rapid access to critical therapeutics while ensuring the safety and efficacy?
네, 또 이제 한국말로 답변을 드리도록 하겠습니다. 실제적으로 이 당 클론 항체에 대해서 심사하는 그런 과정이나 봐야 되는 그런 항목들이 크게 다르지는 않습니다. 특별히 당 클론 항체에 대해서 뭔가를 면제를 하거나 또는 배려하거나 하는 그런 관점이 아니라 실제적으로 우리가 대상으로 삼고 있는 LMIC 국가에서 왜 당 클론 항체의 접근성이 떨어질까? 그거의 원인을 좀 고민을 해봤습니다. 첫 번째는 굉장히 가격이 높습니다. 가격이 높은 이유가 있습니다. 제조할 때 굉장히 많은 비싼 그런 시약들이 들어가게 됩니다. 그래서 제조 원가가 비쌀 수밖에 없는데요. 이 제조 원가를 낮춰서 똑같은 품질의 더 저비용의 그런 바이오시밀러들을 생산해 낼 수 있습니다. 그거는 그런 제조 방법을 고민하고 연구를 하면 좀 얻어질 거라고 생각을 하는데요. 이러한 새로운 제조 방법이 개발이 되었을 때 규제 기관에서 그거를 잘 또 굉장히 긍정적으로 검토해 주는 그런 자세가 필요하다고 생각합니다. 두 번째로 당 클론 항체는 전부 주사제이고요. 그리고 냉장 상태에서 보관되고 유통이 돼야 됩니다. 그것도 큰 허들 중에 하나입니다. 특히 이제 주사제이기 때문에 병원에 입원을 해서 뭐 1시간에서 한 2시간 정도 주사를 맞아야 되는 부분이 있으니까 이게 또 다른 그런 LMIC 국가에서의 허들이 될 수 있습니다. 제 생각에는 이제 이러한 그 주사제라고 하더라도 정맥 주사가 아니라 좀 간단하게 저희가 이제 피아투여라고 하는데요. 근육 주사나 피아투여 주사제로 이렇게 제형을 바꾸게 되면 굉장히 간편하게 백신 맞듯이 굉장히 간편하게 주사를 맞출 수가 있어서 그러한 제형을 개발한다라든가 아니면은 뭔가 좀 열에 더 안정하게 만들어서 냉장 보관이 아니라 상온에서도 유통이 될 수 있게끔 만든다라든가 그러한 것을 그 R&D 측면에서 연구자들이 같이 고민을 했으면 좋겠고요. 그렇게 해서 만들어진 당 클론 항체에 대해서는 규제 기관에서 좀 더 어떻게 빨리 또 더 적은 그러한 자료로서 똑같은 안전성과 유효성을 확보할 수 있는지 그거에 대해서 고민을 해야 된다고 생각을 합니다. 감사합니다.
Thank you very much, Professor So. Dr. Yang, as we know, monoclonal antibodies are complex biologics that require advanced manufacturing capabilities, which can be a significant barrier in some countries, as we've just heard. In your view, how can we better support countries with less experience in biomanufacturing, especially during public health emergencies, to better access and produce monoclonal antibodies?
Okay. I'd like to emphasize about the resource developments. So at the first questions, I had several challenges for doing some the technical transfer and some the complexity of the manufacturing process. So in order to resolve some the challenges, I think that the capacity buildings for the workforce who work for the biologics would be very important. So nowadays, for the LMICs, there are lack of expertise to support some some operate at the in the process of manufacturing of the monoclonal antibodies. So this training can be done by each companies, but also it is very lack of the expertise to train the workforce who work for the biologics. So I think the GTHB can do this work, this responsibility. So nowadays, we are delivering several training courses to the LMIC people in terms of from the introductory training course for the biologics and the GXP training into the other hands-on training and to be extended to GMP, like experience building through the training course. And then this is also needs to be customized training to each specific LMIC people. So there may be very different stage by each LMICs. So in some countries, they don't have any skills or the facility to produce the monoclonal antibody or other vaccines. So for that specific countries, we may need to train or do the capacity building from the scratch. But on the other hand, the countries who have the manufacturing facilities, and if they produce some product, so we can very easy to train them by accumulating, by giving some more specific training for them. I think hands-on training and extended to the GMP, like the practical training would be very important for them to increase their capabilities to be contributed to produce the monoclonal antibodies in that specific countries. So from the GTHB Support Foundation perspective, I'd like to develop those programs by delivering very customized training to each LMICs. I will start some research next year to find out what is the needs for the LMICs, depending on each country specific situation, so including some the manufacturing capabilities and so on. So therefore, I can develop some some idea, and I can share with my development plan for the training to each all of you in this place, maybe next time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Yang. Your work with the Global Training Hub is an inspiring example of how we can overcome capacity building barriers in less resourced settings, and we really look forward to hearing more on those insights when ready. So lastly, Mr. Elnoush, hi Tom. We've heard a lot today about the need for international coordination and cooperation, especially from donors and governments, in ensuring access to monoclonal antibodies. And I know that access is very close to your heart. In your experience, what role do you see that international actors and the private sector could play in fostering equitable access to therapeutics in a pandemic? And how could we mobilize more sustained support from these stakeholders for future health emergencies?
I would like to thank my fellow panelists here because they emphasized something important, which is the more advanced the countermeasures we are talking about, is the more complex access barriers are, right? So you're more advanced, talk about maps, biologics, biosimilars, then it's not only about clinical trials to determine safety and effectiveness, but also how they are made, right? So their approval and regulations are a little bit different. Take, for example, long-lasting technologies, because they combine many APIs. So this results in a very complex multi-layer IP protection, which makes access hard. So by defining the problem, the challenge, the access challenge, then we can define who should be doing what. And that was the spirit of Act A. Act A was about establishing end-to-end approach in different countermeasures, and that was ad hoc. Why not going forward, taking that spirit in action, right? So we should look at the problem, the challenge for access, and then establish end-to-end structure around that, combining the most relevant partners. So this is one way of doing it. And again, just take one anecdote. We are running out of time, but can we imagine going to the pandemic without the tools that we have, or we manage to develop? That's the scary idea, right? So we should be better prepared and thinking end to end, and what kind of access challenge we would like to approach, and then the roles will be divided that way, because we have different added value, we have different kind of strengths that we can bring on the table. So there are many examples I can bring, but at the time, so sorry for that. But again, end to end contribution based on added value and own strength.
Thank you very much. And by all means, if you'd like to share any additional reflections, you're very welcome to.
Again, we should, the therapeutics are as important as other countermeasures. And I'm saying that because my first travel after the world is was reopened was to Tanzania. And I was invited to a dinner where one of the invitees talked about his experience during COVID. He got sick, there were no vaccines, he got very heavy and maybe wrong medication. So he got kidney failure. And he was traveling the day after the dinner to Kenya to get treatment. Not even in Tanzania, he could get it, right? So that's why it shows how important therapeutics are as part of the toolbox to be responding to pandemics. So we should do better than this. We should do better than this by having equity and solidarity as guiding stars.
Thank you. And I'd like to thank all panelists for such a lively and enriching discussion. We've covered a range of challenges and opportunities and actionable steps that are needed to advance global health security and to advance equitable access to therapeutics, including monoclonals. Your contributions today and those of the presenters underscore the commitment and the collective action to ensure global health equity and preparedness. As we come to the end of this event, on behalf of the Korea DCA and Unitaid, I would like to extend a sincere thank you to all of our speakers, all of our panelists, and all of our participants here in the room and online for joining us and for contributing to these important discussions. Thank you very much. And to close this event, I'd like to invite all speakers and panelists to join us here on stage for a group photo. Thank you very much.